Yeah, so we hope you enjoy the presentation we've put together for you today on learning the ways nutrition can impact how we age. Before we begin, we do want to play a quick true or false trivia game with you all to put you to the test and see what you already know about nutrition. So if you would like to participate, we encourage you to turn on your mics and you can speak the answer out loud, or if you feel better, you can write that in your answers in the chat box below.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I will put up the first question.
Okay, so the first question, it may just be easier if you do have access to the group chat, which is in the bottom of the screen. That might be easier to answer these questions. So true or false, heart disease is only caused by bad genetics? Give some people some time. Perfect. We have some falses. Great. False. Oh, F. Awesome. Okay, so yep, everyone pretty much was dead on with that. So this is false. Unfortunately, we don't get to pick our family, and sometimes we don't have the best genetics. But another thing, nutrition plays a big role in preventing things like heart disease, which is often caused by high cholesterol, high blood pressure, smoking, even lack of physical activity, and also can be caused by other conditions like diabetes as well. So not just bad genetics. So I'm glad that pretty much everyone who responded knew that. So that's awesome.
Great. Okay. Yep. So false. And the next question is true or false? The older we get, the less protein we need.
Yeah, so similar to this one. Yeah, just chat box if you're able to. Perfect. We have some false. Oh, awesome. A lot of false. I have a false with a question mark. So Lily, if you would care to elaborate on this one.
Yeah. Great. So the answer is false. We're going to get more into this in just a little bit, but as we age, our protein needs actually increase, and that's to help maintain our muscle mass and our bone strength. So good job.
Perfect. So next one, true or false? Everyone has the same fluid needs. Perfect. Excellent answers. Yes. So this one is false. Your fluid needs are really based on your own weight and physical activity, and even as well as some other underlying conditions. So a person with a congestive heart failure may have different fluid needs than someone who doesn't have that. So it's definitely it's good to be mindful that fluid needs are individualized, much like nutrition is.
Mm-hmm. Next question. So true or false, regular exercise can prevent falls and fractures.
Perfect. So we have a couple of trues. Perfect. And then someone wrote, it helps. Awesome. Perfect.
All right. Yep. So this answer is true. So exercise can help prevent falls and fractures, which is super helpful because as we age, we're more at an increased risk for these types of things to occur.
Great. Absolutely. All right. And so moving on, I believe this is the last one. So true or false, medications can decrease absorption of vitamins and minerals. That is so great. It's almost like we didn't need to ask these questions. You guys are on top of it. All of this was true. Perfect. So answer is true for this. There are medications, which we will get into a little bit, that can decrease absorption of vitamins and minerals. And even some that do increase it too. So that's why it's important to get the proper amount of nutrients is important. Just knowing what conditions you have and what you need and talking with a doctor or a dietitian to find what fits you. All right. And so that concludes trivia. So great job, everyone. And thank you for participating. We really appreciate it. If you did, most of you knew the answers. So that's awesome. However, if you were questioning, oh, well, why is it like this? We are going to be getting into some of the background of why some of these recommendations are made, and explanations for some of the answers that we had for the trivia.
Great. All right. So why is nutrition important as we age? Why is this something we should even worry about? So there are many benefits of good nutrition. There's evidence that that what we eat can improve our mental and our physical well-being. And good nutrition can also increase our energy levels. It can keep our bones and our muscles strong. It can improve our blood pressure and our blood sugar levels, and also help reduce the risk of heart disease.
Okay. And so as you grow older, you may notice some changes in your eating habits, and this really could be this could include anything from a decrease in your appetite, or that you may notice you're getting fuller more quickly. You may not just be able to eat as much as you used to, which is very common. You may find that you're skipping meals more often and rely on processed, prepackaged foods or even fast food. And some health problems and medications may also make eating more complicated and may interact with absorbing those vitamins and minerals, and may even cause dehydration. And what many people don't realize is that nutrient needs tend to increase as we age, or even just change, most of the time increase. And these things include protein, calcium, vitamin D, and fiber. All of these things we tend to need more of as we get older. So Lily and I are going to provide helpful tips on how to make sure you are getting what your body needs, and sort of the explanation behind it, and some ideas of what foods you know may include those vitamins and minerals, or nutrients.
So let's first off start by discussing how to eat well. So this is the My Plate Guide. It's put out by the US Department of Agriculture. Some of you might be familiar with the food pyramid, and it used to show, different food groups that you should be getting every day. Well, this is actually the new model that has replaced the food pyramid. So we don't use the food pyramid anymore. So now it's on a plate, so it's easier to visualize when you're making a meal. So this plate models what you should be having at every single meal. So half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables. 1/4 of your plate should contain protein sources, and we want to focus on lean protein sources. And those are things like fish, nuts, eggs, chicken, turkey. And then the other 1/4 of your plate should contain grains. And we want to focus on whole grains, such as like whole wheat bread, whole grain pasta, brown rice. And then also, we want to make sure we're getting at least 2 to 3 servings of dairy every day. And also making sure that we're choosing water as our drink of choice most often.
Perfect. And to kind of go off of that, on this slide, it offers a more of a visual guideline with real foods that are specifically recommended for older adults. So this plate shows actual food to buy when going to the grocery store. If you see at the very bottom too, this includes exercise, which we will discuss later, because physical activity is as important as good nutrition. Also with this visual, we really want to send home the idea of how important it is to regularly be getting balanced meals, which includes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, proteins, and adequate fluid. Also on this plate, it shows healthy fats, including oils, as well as herbs and spices. Healthy fats are an essential part of a good diet and include things like olive oil, avocado oil, nuts and seeds. So healthy fats are generally those unsaturated fatty acids that usually are more from plant-based rather than animal-based, like butter and the fat that we find in like red meat and things like that. Herbs and spices also have an honorable mention on this plate, because especially as we age, it's important to really avoid salt as much as we possibly can. And herbs and spices can add flavor to a meal without adding that unnecessary salt that we may be limiting or we're trying to use just less of.
So now we're going to talk about protein. So let's discuss why it's so important. As we said earlier in our trivia game, protein needs increase as we age. So we encourage you to try to get around 25 to 30 grams of protein at every meal. So this is the same as a deck of cards or the palm of your hand. So if you follow both of those are both a really good serving size of protein. So most people are really good at having meat for dinner and getting that protein in, but sometimes people tend to forget about other meals such as breakfast, lunch, and even snacks. And protein sources, as we mentioned before, include legumes, eggs, fish, nuts, chicken, and it's also found in dairy products as well. Protein is important to help build muscle and help maintain the muscle strength. So if we don't get enough, you might feel less alert and you might experience some fatigue as well. So we need protein for long-lasting energy. And as we age, our appetite might decrease or we might get more full more quickly. And this can be tough to meet our protein needs, but some easy ways that you can get more protein in is by adding like beans to your lunch or using peanut butter or Greek yogurt at your breakfast or adding in nuts to oatmeal or having them as a snack.
Okay, so does when we eat matter? So really timing wise, no, but it is important to make sure we are eating regularly and aim for at least 3 meals a day. If that seems like too much for you, then we do encourage smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day and even nutritious snacks in between. Sometimes if we're feeling tired or not up to eating, we often skip meals. However, if you kind of think of it like this, our bodies are similar to an engine. So if we go for long periods of time without eating, sort of how a car, goes for long periods of time without gas, we won't run as efficiently. And signs and symptoms can manifest as low blood sugar, headache, blurred vision, anxiousness, and fatigue. And also of note, by not eating regularly throughout the day or skipping meals, you're likely not getting enough protein in, which we discussed that's important, especially as we're getting older, to even get more than what a younger person would be getting. And that can also add to those feelings of fatigue. Also important to be mindful of making sure that protein is spread out through your day, because as Lily was saying, that can add to, the feeling of fullness and making sure that you're not feeling fatigued or shaky or having that fast heartbeat. So just important to be mindful of that.
Right. So one thing a lot of people tend to struggle with is staying hydrated. So dehydration can impact our blood pressure, it can impact our mood and our concentration, and even our energy levels. Most people will wait until they're thirsty to drink fluids, but thirst is actually a sign of dehydration. So if you wait till you're thirsty, it's already too late because you're already too dehydrated. So just like eating meals regularly, you need to make sure you're getting water in regularly throughout the day as well. And how much water you need is dependent on your body weight and your activity levels. But in general, we do aim for 8 cups of fluid every day. So take a moment in the next couple of days and think about how much water you're getting throughout the day and if that really is enough. If you find that you're struggling with getting in enough water, it does sometimes help to buy a new water bottle or even one with a straw because it's easier to sip on. And then once you do get a water bottle, carry that around with you throughout the day and try to sip from it every 15, 20 minutes or so, even when you're not thirsty. And we also want to limit sugary drinks because these have a dehydrating effect and also they're just not good for our overall health. So added sugar can have an impact on our blood sugar levels and it can really make our blood sugar levels spike up. And this can decrease the amount of energy we have to get us through the rest of the day. So we encourage you water most often and sugary drinks in moderation.
Okay, so everyone's favorite thing, exercise. So physical activity is one of the most important things you can do for your health now and even prevents many future health problems that are often associated with aging. Exercising can also keep your muscles strong so you're able to do activities of daily living independently for a longer period of time. So how much should you be exercising? How much should you aim for? So it's recommended that you aim for at least 150 minutes per week of aerobic exercise. So this would include anything that really gets your heart pumping. So it's walking, running, swimming. I know in this image here, they have raking, gardening, golfing. So it's anything to get your blood pumping. Additionally, we recommend doing at least 2 days a week of muscle strength training on top of that 150 minutes of exercise. This is anything that gets the muscles working, such as using weights. And really, you should be as physically active as your abilities allow. But some physical activity, just as a reminder, some physical activity is better than none at all. Also important to note, activities you may not consider exercise actually are, and you should definitely count those. So some of those could include walking, walking down the stairs, standing up from the couch, cleaning, carrying groceries, and it's really any activity of daily living that will get your body moving can be counted as exercise in one of those aerobic or anaerobic activities. Okay. So next we are going to discuss some specific nutrients that are especially important to consider when aging.
So we will begin with calcium. So calcium intake is crucial for our bone strength and our bone maintenance. We actually stop growing our bones by our late 20s, but it's still important to get the right amount of calcium to help maintain the strength of those bones and to help reduce fractures and bone breaks in the future. If we don't get enough calcium, this can lead to what's called osteoporosis. And osteoporosis is a major health concern for older adults, especially women. And this is where your bone density reduces, and so the risk of a fracture increases. In the picture on the right, you can see a healthy bone versus an osteoporosis bone. So the osteoporosis bone, as you can see, is more porous and there's less structure to it. That causes less support. So when you fall, there's less support for your bones, and this can lead to more serious fractures. And also on the bottom of the slide, you can place yourself in the age and the gender category that you are, and this can determine how much calcium you should be getting every day. So if you're a male 51 to 70 years old, you need 1,000 milligrams of calcium every day. Females 51 to 70-year-old need 1,200 milligrams a day, and so do adults over the age of 70.
Okay, so what does this really look like? And primary sources of calcium include dairy products, some canned fish like sardines, and dark leafy green vegetables. And specific examples of foods high in calcium on the slide include milk. The fat content doesn't matter so much, so the calcium won't be any different from a 1% to 2% whole fat skim. That doesn't really matter so much for calcium content. So cheese, yogurt, and spinach. And really, so long as you're consuming a diverse diet full of dairy, dark leafy vegetables, or even canned fish, you're probably consuming an adequate amount of calcium. And really try not to get hung up on those numbers. I know Lily had gone over some of those, like 1,000 micrograms, things like that. And I don't totally know what that looks like hands-on coming from like a nutrition background, but I do know if I get an adequate amount of dairy in my day, or if I'm eating a big green salad, I know that I'm going to be getting enough calcium. So just being mindful of the foods that you're eating, I think is the best recommendation from us. And really too, if you aren't a big fan of dark leafy vegetables or cheese, or you don't really do dairy, it might be beneficial to talk to your doctor about getting a calcium supplement, just because, as Lily had mentioned before, calcium is really essential for that bone health and preventing osteoporosis, bone breaks, and fractures.
All right, so next we're going to move on to vitamin D. So calcium and vitamin D are actually really closely related. So vitamin D helps absorb that calcium that we're eating in our body, and it also helps to reduce the risk of osteoporosis. Vitamin D deficiency is extremely common in the United States, and 61% of seniors are deficient in vitamin D. And vitamin D deficiency in seniors is associated with increased falls and higher rates of depression too. So we get most of our vitamin D from sunshine. However, the weather in New England can make getting enough regular sunshine very challenging. And vitamin D is also rather scarce in food sources. It's really only found in fish, in fortified milk. So vitamin D supplements are sometimes necessary in ensuring that we get enough vitamin D. And it's recommended to supplement with 1,000 micrograms of vitamin D per day. But again, this is a conversation to bring up with your doctor if you think you're lacking any vitamin D, because they can do a blood test with you, and they can determine on an individual level how much you need individually that you might need to supplement with.
Okay, so now let's take a look at some foods that are high in vitamin D. However, before we do, I do just want to reiterate that in general, supplements and sunshine are the best way to ensure you're taking in enough vitamin D. However, if you like any of the foods that we're going to be talking about, those are also good sources of it as well. So some food sources include fish such as salmon, mackerel, and tuna. It can also be found in fortified orange juice, fortified milk, and fortified breakfast cereals. So fortification just means they add it afterwards, so it doesn't inherently come with the product, like for instance salmon or any of those other fish sources would. So they add it in afterwards. But again, we do recommend just talking with your doctor if you have concerns you're not consuming enough vitamin D, just because of how common it is. So you just want to be mindful of that's a potential if you're not a big salmon person, or you don't go outside too much right now, especially with this winter that we've had. I know I had to supplement some vitamin D because I know I wasn't getting enough. So definitely talk with your doctor, because having a vitamin D deficiency limits, or having adequate amounts of vitamin D really limits the risk of depression, helps you absorb calcium more, and puts you at a lesser risk of getting those bone breaks and fractures.
Great. Another essential nutrient that we're going to talk about is vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 helps create plenty of red blood cells for our body, and it also helps maintain our nerve function. And without vitamin B12, a deficiency can occur, which might result in anemia, falls, nerve problems, shortness of breath, or even cognitive decline. And unfortunately, seniors are at the highest risk of developing a B12 deficiency for several reasons. One reason might be inadequate vitamin B12 intake in the diet. You can see these food sources on this slide, but we're also going to go over those on the next slide. And a deficiency in vitamin B12 can also be caused by medication interactions. So some medications will inhibit absorption of vitamin B12, like we were talking about in the trivia game. So these are drugs like metformin, which is a diabetes drug, or colchicine, which is an anti-inflammatory medication, and also certain antibiotics. And deficiency in vitamin B12 can also be caused by reduced stomach acid. So if you were diagnosed with acid reflux, or you have regular heartburn, your doctor might have put you on a medication that's meant to lower your stomach acid, and that's called a proton pump inhibitor. These are things such as omeprazole, Prevacid, or even Tums. And stomach acid is needed to break down food. So when we don't have enough stomach acid, food and nutrients like vitamin B12 can't be properly absorbed. And this can also be a complication of gastrointestinal surgeries like bariatric surgeries or stomach line repairs. Also, malabsorptive disorders, including irritable bowel disease, like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, can also affect the amount of B12 that's absorbed. It might be beneficial to get a blood test done at your doctor's visit if you suspect you might be low in vitamin B12. If a vitamin B12 deficiency is diagnosed by your doctor, they might prescribe you B12 supplements or B12 injections.
Okay, so now we're gonna jump into some food sources that are high in B12. So on this slide, some common food sources that many of us have in our diets already include milk, Greek yogurt, beef liver, and just beef products in general, chicken, eggs, fortified cereals like Cheerios, and seafood like tuna, trout, and clams. These are all items that are high in vitamin B12. And so you see at the top, if you can see, at the top of the corner, the recommended intake for vitamin B12 is 2.4 micrograms. So most of you are likely already eating foods high in vitamin B12 if you're eating any of the ones on the screen. So you may already, you may be fine in that front. However, if you have those complications that Lily was talking about before, so if you're taking medications that may interact with it, if you've had any, for instance, bariatric surgeries, if you have IBD, if you have anything that's affecting your stomach acid, you may be at risk of not absorbing as much vitamin B12 as you're taking in. So again, it's important to be mindful of those common symptoms of the B12 deficiency, including those nerve problems, shortness of breath, if you find you're frequently falling. So please talk with your doctor if you're experiencing any of those, just so they can see, oh, hey, this is maybe a B12 deficiency, and what are the underlying reasons for that, and how can we fix it?
All right. Next, let's talk about dietary fiber. So dietary fiber is non-digestible. It's a bulking substance that helps transit food through our gastrointestinal system. In regular fiber consumption is essential for several reasons. Fiber actually helps lower cholesterol, and this helps to prevent heart disease. It also helps regulate bowel movements and decreases the risk of constipation. It also decreases risk of certain types of cancer, and it also slows down the absorption of sugar. And this is especially important for those with diabetes. So when you eat sugar, fiber will help slow the absorption of that sugar, which helps prevent big spikes in our blood sugar levels.
Okay, so this slide shows some common food sources that are high in fiber. So these are whole grains like whole grain bread, high fiber cereals like Raisin Bran, fruits and vegetables like apples, avocados, Brussels sprouts, bananas, edamame, and sweet potato. And really, so long as you're consuming about 5 servings of fruits and vegetables each day, you will likely be getting enough fiber in your diet. Nearly all vegetables and fruits will have some level of fiber in them, so you can't go wrong. If you're looking to introduce some more fiber into your diet, it's definitely a good way to do that. Also worth noting is that when you're shopping for breads, it's important to look for products labeled whole grain or 100% whole wheat, rather than white bread, because the process of creating the white bread, it takes away certain aspects of the wheat. So there's inherently just less fiber in like white bread. Also, when increasing fiber consumption, it should be a gradual process as to prevent complications like intestinal blockages or constipation. And really to make sure when you're consuming these fiber containing foods, you're increasing your liquid intake, so increasing water with it, because if you're not doing that, that may add to potential complications like constipation and things like that. So the big thing is just when you're make it a gradual process. If fiber is something you're interested in getting more of, make it gradual and add more water as well. And then just to reiterate Lily's point, having a diet rich in dietary fiber, it will help limit risk of heart disease and certain types of cancer, and will help regulate those bowel movements as well.
All right. And next, we're going to talk about limiting sodium in our diet. So some medications can affect your taste, and also aging can decrease the production of saliva. And as we age, our taste and our smell might start to decline, and this could lead to a craving for additional salt. So instead of grabbing the salt shaker, instead you can try using salt-free substitutes like Mrs. Dash there on the left. Or you can season your foods with herbs and spices like pepper or garlic, and you can also use lemon juice as well. Another thing we want to do is limit our salty snacks like chips. And instead, you can try going for unsalted or low sodium snacks instead. So these are a good example, the unsalted saltine crackers. And then we also want to buy low sodium canned products. If we're buying, it will say it right there, reduced sodium on the top. And also, if you're buying any canned vegetables, it's best to rinse them underwater because they come pre-processed with a bunch of salt in it. So just rinse those underwater before you consume them to get rid of some of the salts. And when you're going out to a restaurant, try to look at the nutrition information on the website before you go and try to choose the meals that are lower in sodium. I know that can be hard sometimes. I love to put a lot of sodium in all those foods, but just trying to make the best choice. And when you do go to a restaurant, you can ask for your condiments like ketchup to be on the side. That way you can kind of control how much how much salt you're using. And they even make no salt added ketchup that you can buy for your house as well.
I thought it was just an interesting point. When we were doing this research, Lilia told me about the rinsing the canned vegetables to kind of get rid of that excess salt. I had no idea. And so now I plan to do that. So I definitely learned something preparing for this. Okay. So although we want everyone to use the dietary information we gave you, we do recognize it's important to just enjoy your food. And part of enjoying your food is enjoying the experience around eating. So we want to encourage everyone to make time in your schedule to try to do your best to eat those 3 square meals each day, and take time to eat your food. So eat slowly and thoughtfully, maybe try to eat without distractions. So try not to eat in front of your computer or have your cell phone near you or eat while you're driving. Really trying to limit those distractions and just think about the food that's in front of you. So enjoy your meals with friends and families. We know it's especially hard right now with the pandemic, but enjoying a meal over video chat with your family and friends will add to the overall experience. Hopefully with the vaccines, I know I just got my first one. We will be able to get together soon and go out to restaurants with people and even cook meals with one another. And cooking together can make eating more pleasurable. Not only that, but it can also, by making meals from scratch, it takes away all of those processed foods that often have those salts and all those additives that we don't necessarily want. So that's a great option as well. Okay, so that pretty much concludes our presentation, or the bulk of it. So before questions, we're actually just going to jump back into some quick trivia. So I'm going to assume you're all going to do fantastic and maybe see what new information some of you may have come away with. So just remember, if you have an answer to the trivia, if you could just type it in the chat box, or if you have access to unmute yourself, you're welcome to do that as well.
All right, so kind of going back to our questions at the beginning. So heart disease is more often related to nutrition than other factors including genetics. True or false?
Perfect. So we're getting all trues. Awesome.
Great.
Yes.
All right. Yep. You guys are right. It's true. If you remember, heart disease is more often related to nutrition. Genetics does play a role, but if we eat well-balanced meals and we get regular exercise, these things can be more impactful to our overall health than our genetics.
Okay, so on to the next one. True or false? The older we get, our protein requirements increase. Oh, that's perfect. Yes, we're getting a lot of trues. Awesome. Perfect. So it kind of matches up. You already knew this coming into it, but I'm glad that we were able to offer a little bit of an explanation anyway. So that the answer is true. More protein is required in order to just maintain our muscles, and it helps with preventing falls and bone breaks.
Next one, true or false? Everyone has differing fluid needs. However, most of us should aim for around 8 cups a day.
Oh,
This
awesome.
is an easy one.
Yeah, we got a bunch of people jumping in. So it's true. Yeah, a
Yep.
bunch of truths.
So true. Yep. Remember, fluids depend on our physical activity levels and our weight. So if you do want to determine your own fluid needs, you can definitely reach out to a dietitian and they can help you calculate your individual fluid needs. But in general, 8 cups is a great number to aim for.
Awesome. Okay. So next one, true or false? Regular exercise puts a person at higher risk for falls and fractures. Perfect. I see a false. I see a T for true. See another false. All right. So the answer for this one actually is false. So although one would think because you are moving around so much, you may have more chances of falling, but this is not the case. So regular movement actually strengthens your muscles and helps prevent those falls. So you're so used to doing the exercise, you're training your body, so you're less likely, to be more susceptible to falling. So yep, absolutely, that one is false.
All right, and our last one, true or false? Medications never interfere with absorption of vitamins and minerals.
Oh, great. Yeah. So this one also was a landslide. I see a bunch of Fs.
Good. All right. Yep. False. So some medications do interfere with absorptions of vitamins and minerals, like we were talking about before with vitamin B12. Those proton pump inhibitors and metformin can inhibit B12's absorption. Good job.
Awesome. All right. So we've come to the end of our presentation. And again, we just want to thank everyone for attending and participating in the trivia. That was amazing. We hope everyone was able to take something away today. But however, if you are feeling overwhelmed, we did give you a lot of information, so that's totally okay. Really don't feel like you have to make all of these changes all at once, but do start with small goals and gradually continue to make more changes over time. So for instance, if you find that you're not maybe not drinking enough water, start with that as a goal this week, and maybe next week attempt getting a little more protein in your diet. It's not a race, it's a marathon. I live by that sentiment, so I think this perfectly pertains to this. And a big takeaway of today's presentation is really to remember that nutrient needs do change as we age, and that good nutrition plays a huge role in creating a healthy aging process. Yes, so I think have one more slide. Yes. So that concludes the presentation. We are going to stick around for any questions. Definitely feel free to type them in the chat box or just speak up. If you would like to leave, you are welcome to. We do have our emails on the slide as well. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions or questions you think may come up later. So feel free to email us, but I will be monitoring the chat for a little bit. Oh, perfect. So we have a couple of questions. Awesome. Let me see. Okay. I believe someone had asked earlier if they would have access to the slides afterwards. So I do believe this is being screen recorded. I'm not sure if it's going to be shared or where it would be shared.
I can answer that question.
Oh, great.
Recording will be available after the program ends. I will send out an email to anyone who registered with the link to view the program, and you'll be able to get it that way. I will also share the link on the Facebook event if you joined from there and you didn't register with us. So those are two ways. And if those are not accessible to you, you can always call or email us. Our email is library@manchesternh.gov, or you can check our calendar for the contact for the program. However you reach out to us, we'll get the link to you.
Perfect. That's awesome. So I do have another question. So someone had wrote, I've noticed as I age that many foods I used to love no longer have the same appeal to me. Is it boredom, changing taste buds, medication interaction, or perhaps I am getting picky? So that is a fantastic question, and also a common problem I've noticed. Lily and I both have had some clinical experience in working, especially in an acute care setting with older adults. That seems to be a common problem. So foods may not have the same flavor as they used to, and so they find that they have to compensate by adding all of these extra, maybe even salt-based things, which we know isn't necessarily the best for our health. So I guess the reason behind it, it's dependent really on you. And so to kind of take a census of what's going on for you personally. So if you're on any medications, I think that could maybe be something to talk with your doctor about, because there are certain medications that really mess. I know a lot of cancer medications will specifically mess with your taste. So if you have a history with that, that could be a reason for it. I know a bunch of medications, the side effect is that you just, your appetite isn't there, which can also cause an effect on just your taste too. So that could be something as well. So definitely I would recommend talking with, if you are on any medications, or maybe just do your own research or talk with your doctor on that. Do you have any input, Lily?
Yeah, so aging can decrease the amount of saliva we're producing. So that definitely affects your taste as well. So I would definitely recommend trying those herbs and spices. Try making foods in a different way. I don't know if anybody uses Pinterest, but it's an app, like they have a bunch of recipes and new ways that you can kind of, or getting a cookbook too, that could be something as well. But just trying to change up the way that maybe you're eating your food. Maybe you're just getting bored of the same way that you're preparing it as well. So that might help.
Yeah. And I guess too, I'd like to extend this question to anyone else who's still sticking around. If anyone else has had that problem, if they have a specific reason for why they're experiencing that, or if they have any suggestions on how they've made, eating a little bit more interesting. So definitely feel free to write that in the chat as well, or just speak up if you are able to.
And also send in any other questions that you guys
Yes.
might have as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, while you guys are typing, oh, there's a question.
Okay.
Do you think that organic and grass-fed products have better nutritional value?
Ooh, so I'd absolutely love to answer that. So there's always just a big conflict between conventional versus organic. So nutritionally, so just speaking totally from a nutrition aspect of what nutrients are in this item. So organic and conventionally grown items, or even like grass-fed beef, things like that. So there is generally no difference from a nutritional value. However, that being said, I know a lot of people will look into potentially the safety behind certain conventional items. Some items are, more susceptible to taking in the pesticides and things that are, are used to keep them around or grow a little bit longer, to stop bugs from getting into them. So I know that tends to be a concern for people. Certain more porous fruits and vegetables, things like that, people are concerned about. However, there's not too much data out there right now about that. So I definitely recommend, there's the Clean 15. And so those are 15 fruits and vegetables. I believe, Lily, that you should buy conventionally, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the ones that have like those tough skins. So like bananas and apples and things like that. So they have tough skins that, you can easily rinse off if there's anything on them. And so I definitely would recommend from that, if you're concerned about just the safety behind like pesticide use and things like that, maybe look into like Clean 15, things like that. But from a fully nutritional aspect, there is no difference from what we know right now. I mean, nutrition information is always changing, but we do recognize that in the future, things always change, especially with nutrition. So we know that, like, you know, last decade eggs were bad, and now we're like, hey, have eggs. So right now, like I said, with the evidence we have, we know that that's no difference.
Yeah, that was a great answer, Brittany.
Thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes people think pesticides, organic foods have no pesticides at all. And that's not true either. They still have some pesticides. So it really doesn't matter. You just should wash your fruits and vegetables in general.
That was also a great question too. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Also, while you're, if you're gonna ask any more questions, feel free. Also, if you want to share something that maybe you learned something new today, or if anything's gonna take away something and try something new.
Also, I want to just mention that if you do have questions after the fact, I can definitely send them along to Brittany and Lily if you don't feel comfortable reaching out yourself, or you lose their email. I have their emails. I can definitely forward your questions. For the few people that are left, I just want to say that I put a link to a survey in the chat, and if you want to fill that out real quick for the library, that would be great. I will also share the feedback with Brittany and Lily for their project. And I think it's just one person left.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it's just one person on my cell phone. So thank you very much from the Manchester City Library. My name is Sue Harmon. We had Brittany and Lily from Sodexo to talk about senior nutrition. Thank you so much for coming, and have a great afternoon and a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.